Good evening. Good evening. Amazing. What's going on?
We have intelligence from multiple sources, including our allies and our own intelligence. The evidence indicates that the plane was shot down by an Iranian surface-to-air missile. This may well have been unintentional. New information reinforces the need for a thorough investigation into this matter. Canada is working with its allies to ensure that a thorough and credible investigation is conducted to determine the causes of this fatal crash. As I said yesterday, Canadians have questions, and they deserve answers.
That was Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau addressing the downed Ukraine passenger jet that killed 176 people in Iran. 63 of the victims were Canadian citizens. U.S. officials are confident the Boeing 737 was struck by at least one missile that had been fired from the ground. It was likely hit by an Iranian anti-aircraft system. For more, let's bring in Lara Seligman. She is a Pentagon correspondent for Foreign Policy magazine. Thank you so much for being with us. How does this downed passenger jet complicate an already tense situation with Iran?
So this has been a very fast-moving story, and the U.S. today was very careful not to confirm any of the reports that this was actually a mistake by Iran, that all these reports that were coming in earlier today. They were very careful not to confirm. They let the Canadian Prime Minister go out in front first. I believe that was intentional so as not to ratchet up tensions even more. Of course, this plane being down comes at a very tense time, a time of heightened alert in the region. Just a few hours
like a dad. Did he shake?
At least a dozen missiles from Iran.
Like he just woke up.
And U.S. military and coalition targets in Iraq. And so
dude,
and things are really in flux. And I believe the intelligence shows that the Iranians thought mistakenly that this might be a sign that the U.S. was going to launch a counterstrike, and they accidentally shot down a Ukrainian passenger, killing all aboard. It's important to note, in fact, that this is not the first time that commercial airliners, civilians on a commercial airliner, have been in the line of fire in tensions between Washington and Tehran. Actually, in 1988, the U.S. accidentally shot down an Iran Air jet in a similar manner when tensions were high. So just a really tragic story here.
Well, I want to ask you about your latest piece for Foreign Policy. You title it, Trump's Defense Secretary Finds His Voice in Iran Crisis. How has Defense Secretary Mark Esper's role evolved during these latest provocations with Iran?
So Defense Secretary Mark Esper came into the role with a little foreign policy experience, really. He was a lower level staffer on the Hill. He had experience in industry. He was an infantry officer and most recently Army Secretary. So he kind of comes into the role at a bit of a disadvantage, in addition to not being the incumbent as Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is. So I believe he's kind of taking his time, he's calculating, he's being behind the scenes and feeling it out in order to figure out the best way to really get the president's ear and gain the president's trust. I think what's happened that you've seen in the past 6 months or so since he's been confirmed, all these tensions with Iran ratcheting up, I think Secretary Esper has really kind of he's figured out his role, and that role is to enable Secretary Pompeo with his sort of taking control. He's a key decision maker. He's purposefully being a little bit behind the scenes, but that shouldn't be in no way be mistaken for not having a role.
Interesting. Well, I know you spoke with former CENTCOM Commander Joseph Votel about the ongoing conflict with Iran. What was his take on the situation?
His take was it would be foolish of us to assume that Iran just.
That it's a tragic thing. Somebody could have made a mistake on the other side. Could have made a mistake. It was flying. It was flying in
their airspace.
Not our system. No, it has nothing to do with us. It was flying in a pretty rough neighborhood, and somebody could have made a mistake. Some people say it was mechanical. I personally don't think that's even a question.
Well, this all comes as the House is set to debate and vote on a resolution to curb the president's war powers. Last week, he approved an airstrike that killed a top Iranian general. The White House cited an imminent threat. Earlier, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi pushed back on the president's rationale.
I do not believe, in terms of what it is, that they have made the country safer by what they did. Our country is a pretty traumatic thing. When we want to engage in these
to kill for our country,
whatever we want to call this that the president engaged in, we have to be really careful about how we endanger our men and women in uniform who courageously, patriotically put themselves out there to protect and defend.
We're going to get to that, but first, I want to bring in CBS News transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleave in Washington about the latest on this news. So, Chris, what exactly do we know?
Well,
what exactly do we know?
Well, we can tell you that U.S. officials are confident that an Iranian missile brought down this Ukraine airliner. But basically what we're hearing is that U.S. intelligence picked up signals of Iranian radar being turned on, and then U.S. satellites detected infrared blips of 2 missile launches, and then followed shortly thereafter another infrared blip of an explosion. And this generally tracks with what we know about this crash, in that the flight data we have, the preliminary data, shows the plane taking off and moving normally and progressing a normal takeoff until it got to about 8,000 feet, and then all of the information cuts out. That would be consistent with a catastrophic mid-air event. There's some new video that has surfaced that appears to show the moment of impact, and that also matches a mid-air explosion, followed by the plane coming down and exploding onto the ground in that ball of fire that we have seen. So it does appear that there's supporting evidence here from what we know that's out there about what U.S. officials have been able to see through U.S. satellite information. We know that federal officials were briefed on this morning, and that they're in that briefing. There was talk of missile components being found or appearing to be found near the scene of the crash. That would be another piece of intel that would lead U.S. intelligence to think that this was a missile strike. It does all sort of fit together based on what we know right now. As far as the investigation, there are a lot of questions. The Iranians say,
when it comes to burning fat and building muscle for a guy, the biggest mistake that you can make.
Democratic Congressman of New York, Max Rose, joins us right now from Washington. And Congressman, you place your limits here. You are against this measure to limit the president's powers.
Well, absolutely. And first of all, Happy New Year. Neil, it's great to see you again. Let's be clear about what has happened over the last several weeks. First of all, the killing of Qasem Soleimani was legal, justified. Nobody should mourn the loss or the death of someone with the blood of U.S. soldiers on his hands. He was a terrorist. In the immediate aftermath of that killing, though, I, along with many members of Congress, came out and said, it matters what happens tomorrow. In the event of an inevitable Iranian retaliation, at that point, we didn't know what it would look like. We were not interested. No one should be interested in war unless you have to go with war. And I was encouraged by the fact that the president de-escalated the situation. And so now here we find ourselves. And I do not believe that what this calls for is a political messaging document. Instead, what we have to do in a bipartisan fashion is talk about separation of powers, talk about revising these authorizations for the use of military force, which are more than 20 years old or nearly 20 years old. We have serious questions to consider. This is not the way to do it.
All right. So when your colleagues say they weren't convinced, given the briefings on the justification for this attack, on Soleimani, you obviously differ.
Well, yeah, look, there are several justifications for this. One, you have Article 2. But secondly, you have the 2002 AUMF. Qasem Soleimani has killed so many soldiers, injured so many others. I think about people I served with in Afghanistan who this man nearly killed. So yes, I understand that. And also, may I say that when we're looking at men and women in uniform, you can't one day talk about assaults on our institutions, trusting people, and then the next day not trust people. But with that being said, that is a matter of assaulting, killing a terrorist. Now we have real questions of war and peace. But those questions have to be dealt with through looking at the authorization for the use of military force, looking at congressional appropriations for long-term and protracted wars, not be dealt with messaging documents and straight-up politics. Congress is not a rapid response PR agency. It is a serious body, and we've got to treat it as such.
You are a Democrat in a very Republican district. And
right. Oh, my dude. Ugh. What the hell? Who's gonna make that? Oh, man. Tell you.
To nurses who make a difference every day.
We could be prosperous again.
With the incredible brand. $20 billion. I said, make it 50.
Make it 50. Farmers.
China's very big. And they said, okay. They said, sir, the farmers can't produce that much. I said, let the farmers tell me that. Tell them to go out, remember, and buy a bigger what? Tractor. Buy a bigger tractor. You'll produce it. So 40 to 50 billion dollars of agricultural product in the manufacturers and the car companies, and we brought a lot of car companies into Ohio. You know that. A lot of them are coming in. A lot of them have already been brought in. They're coming in from Japan. They're coming in from all over the world. This is where they want to be. They want to be in the United States. That's where the action is. They're all coming back. I used to go around talking about how everyone's leaving. They're all leaving. A lot of you are victims of that leaving. Companies would leave. They'd go to Mexico. They'd go to Canada. They'd close up. They'd buy from China. Now they're all coming back. New ones, old ones, they're all coming back. And many are coming right here to Ohio. And just in case you didn't know it, Ohio just had the best year economically in the history of your state. That's not bad. Exactly. And this year is going to be even better and maybe much better. But weeks ago, I signed the largest ever investment in the United States military, $738 billion. And we created the 6th branch of the United States Armed Forces, the Space Force, and everybody's excited about that. And years of devastating defense cuts, we have fully rebuilt the United States military. Some of it still coming in. We have everything. We've got new planes. We've got new rockets, new missiles. We've got new everything. And it's either here or coming in. $2.5 trillion in new investments. Our military is now stronger and more powerful than ever before. And if you remember, when I took over, we were depleted. Our military was totally depleted. And by the way, speaking of our military, have we taken care of our vets with choice? Choice. With choice. That was a big thing. You know, I used to go around and the VA was a terrible situation. People would wait weeks. He's right. He said, yes, it was. You don't hear too much about that anymore. Do you know? Choice and accountability. You know what accountability is? For 44 years, they tried to get accountability. That's somebody bad, worked for the VA. You couldn't fire them. You couldn't fire them. They could be sadistic. They could be thieves. They could be whatever they were. You couldn't get rid of them. We got accountability approved. And now we say, you're fired, get out. We get somebody that's good. 44 years. And maybe most importantly of all is choice. VA, Veterans Choice. So now you wait online, and a lot of times you'd be waiting in line for 4, 5, 6 weeks. You couldn't see a doctor. Now, if you have to wait, you go out to a private doctor, you get yourself taken care of, we pay the bill. What a difference it's made. What a difference it's made. You know, when I was a little bit newer to this game, that's okay. They got it. They go home to mommy. Going home to mommy. Going home to mommy. It's a beautiful sight. Thank you, security. Do we love law enforcement, by the way? And with the VA, I used to go around and say, why don't they do that? Why don't these people, why don't they go to a private doctor, work something out? And I thought it was a brilliant plan. I said, I'm telling you, I am such a smart guy. I said, this is the most brilliant thing ever. And I went back to my people and I said, you know, I have an idea. A veteran's sick. They can't get the kind of service they need, or they need a certain kind of a doctor. I have an idea.
And this is amazing.
You're going to go out private. You're going to pick up a doctor. You're going to get yourself fixed up. You're going to pay the bill, right? And you know what happened? And I said, how brilliant is that? They say, sir, we've been working on that for 48 years, but we've never been able to get it approved. So I was very, very disillusioned. But you know what I'm good at? Getting things approved.
Liberty, 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 liberty. That was great. Well, at least one of us was.
It's the final days of Ashley Home Store's New Year's sale. Last chance to save up to 30% off. This queen bed is now only $279. Plus, save up to 20% off your entire purchase. Absolutely ends Monday at Ashley Home Store. This is home.
Good evening. Welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. The president is holding his first rally of the year right now. He's speaking to supporters in Toledo, Ohio. We'll have all the highlights for you later this hour, but here's a preview of what's happened so far.
So we seek friends, not on race, but if you dare to threaten our citizens, you do so at your own grave peril.
So we're monitoring that rally for news, and we'll cut in if it happens, especially news on Iran. But first, there is a new mystery involving that country. Now, you may remember a Ukrainian passenger jet, a commercial flight, crashed just a few hours after Iran fired missiles just the other night. It turns out that jet, which had 176 innocent people on board, was likely shot down by the Iranian government shortly after it took off from Iran. Why? Was it an accident? Did the Iranians think it was something else? Was it intentional? We're not 100% certain at this hour. We don't have the black box. But Mike Boyd is an aviation security analyst who's watched this carefully and has some sense of it. To say, Mike, thanks so much for coming on.
My honor.
So, how do you think this happened?
Well, I think their air defenses were up and ready for Americans to come, and they had morons running it. It's as simple as that. They didn't know what they were really doing, and it's very, very clear. Take it to Vegas and make book on it. This was a missile. It was probably not intentional. It's from a very sloppy country running a very sloppy airport.
That's not the Iran that's been described to us recently, which is, has the cutting edge military and the diabolical, terrorist headquarters. So you're saying that they actually are incompetent a lot of the time.
They have to be incompetent to let this happen. I mean, remember, they have a lot of weaponry and all that, but the fact is, what they just did is cut themselves off from the rest of the air transportation system.
Right.
No airline in its right mind is going to want to fly to Tehran. At the end of the
Why are they right mind?
No one wants to take a risk.
Exactly. You stupid.
So that may account for why they apparently lied about it. I mean, the first reports that we got from
you can run that back.
Let this happen. I mean, remember, they have a lot of weaponry and all that. But the fact is,
let this happen.
The Iranians think it was something else. Was it intentional? We're not 100% certain at this hour. We don't have the black box. Mike Boyd is an aviation security analyst who's watched this carefully and has some sense of it. He joins the site. Thanks so much for coming on.
My honor.
So, how do you think this happened?
Learning the Queen and Buckingham Palace were blindsided with the couple reportedly defying the Queen's direct.
How do you think this happened?
Well, I think their air defenses were up and ready for Americans to come, and they had morons running it.
Morons running.
They didn't know what they were really doing. And it's very, very clear. Take it to Vegas and make book on it. This was a missile. It was probably not intentional, but it's from a very sloppy country running a very sloppy airport.
That's not the Iran that's been described to us recently, which is cutting edge military and the diabolical terrorist headquarters. So you're saying that they actually are incompetent a lot of the time.
They have to be incompetent to let this happen. I mean, remember, they have a lot of weaponry and all that, but the fact is, What they just did is cut themselves off from the rest of the air transportation system. No airline in its right mind is going to want to fly to Tehran. And at the end of the week, they'll have less air service in Grand Island, Nebraska, because no one wants to take a risk.
Kiss your daggone.
So that may account for why they apparently we got from, I believe, the Iranian government, or that this was a mechanical problem that brought down the aircraft. Is that a plausible explanation?
No, they had no idea. They said it was technical. And the biggest lie is when they turned around and said, we looked at the black box and some of it's missing. They don't have the equipment to open the thing, let alone play it. So they don't know. They've been lying consistently. And I guarantee this, they're going to be very reticent to let anybody into that debris field, because that will show that it was a missile. There's no question.
There's, I mean, you're certain. Walk us through why you're certain of that.
Well, number one, the airplane was about 7,000 feet when this happened. You know, the pilots would have said something, but what missiles do, they blow up in front of the airplane. That would take out the cockpit right away. Number one, there has been some video, take it or leave it, showing something reaching up to that airplane. But this has all the earmarks of a missile. There's no question about it. Somebody had some button on the missile launch, and they launched a missile. Why it was, I don't think it was intentional. I don't know, but these are crazy people over there. They're not normal.
So will the Iranian government, I mean, presumably is on the hook for killing presumably accidentally, 176 people, a lot of Canadians on there, on the flight. Will they ever concede that they did it, do you think?
Probably not. Look, they've been lying for years. Why wouldn't they lie about this? I mean, they live in that world where they just say whatever it is. You know, they came out just tonight and said, no, that's crazy. It didn't happen. They've been lying consistently. And again, they don't care about 176 people. Take a look at the other things this government has done. So I wouldn't put anything beyond them. But one thing, they probably will never admit to it. And anything someone says that it was a missile, they'll keep on denying it. There's people in this country who'll probably say that's a pretty good answer.
Mike, thanks so much for that explanation.
Pleasure.
Horrifying. Well, the prospect of military conflict with Iran has divided Washington along all kinds of different lines. It's divided the Republican Party as well. Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat, introduced a war powers resolution in the Senate. What would that do exactly? Well, it would limit the president, any president's ability to take military action without getting approval from Congress. It appears to have some bipartisan support. After being angered by a briefing he received at the White House, Republican Mike Lee of Utah says he plans to vote for it.
It is not acceptable for officials within the executive branch of government, I don't care whether they're with the CIA, with the Department of Defense, or otherwise, to come in and tell us that we can't debate and discuss the appropriateness of military intervention against Iran. It's un-American. It's unconstitutional. It's wrong. And I find it completely unacceptable. On that basis, I've decided to support Senator Kaine's resolution, subject to the minor amendments that he and I discussed earlier today.
Mr. President, thanks for this.
Thank you.
You just recently, hours ago, met with the Chinese president.
I did.
Are you closer, do you think, after that meeting to a trade deal?
I think that we had a very good meeting. He wants to make a deal. I want to make a deal. Very big deal, probably, I guess, of any kind, not only trade. We got along very well. We understand each other. He's going to start buying a lot of farm products, which is great for our farmers, while we negotiate. And I'm going to not increase tariffs. I could do. I have a lot we can do. And we're going to put our team together and continue a great negotiation. I think we can do something that will be historic, but we'll see. I mean, we're going to see. I'm in no rush. We have a situation that works very well for us, and I'm sure he's happy. What we're going to do is buy a lot of farm product. We're not going to increase tariffs at this moment, and we'll see what happens with the negotiation. We had a very good meeting.
Do you think your political opponents in the U.S. are on your side in this negotiation?
I think they are, actually. I think they like the fact that I charged tariffs. You know, look, China's been beating us badly for many years. President Obama did nothing, meaning Biden. I don't even think I have to say that anymore. He did nothing. And neither did, in all fairness to President Obama, nobody did. It was crazy. And we had a deficit last year of $506 billion, billion with a B. You almost say, you mean 500 million, don't you know? $506 billion. And this has been going on for years and years and years. We rebuilt China, and they did a great job. I give them a lot of credit.
I know, I can't believe I'm saying it. Another anti-gun bill pre-filed in Virginia. This one, again, was pre-filed yesterday in time for today's crazy session that's been going on. This one has to do with ammunition in Virginia. Watch this episode of Guns and Gadgets. More gun control in Virginia. This one's even worse than all the others before it. It's almost like they can't do anything else. But guess what? They just did. You're going to want to watch this one if you're into the Second Amendment. Stick by. Mark Levine. I'll have his information down below so you can reach out and say hi and let him know how good he's doing, how stellar of a job he's doing. And this bill looks to ban a lot of stuff, just like the ones before it, however, more. So let's get into the summary. So first off, if you haven't watched any of my other Virginia videos, you need to really do that if you want to stay up to date with what's going on. I'll have the link right there for the playlist. I'll also have it in the description below, so no matter what platform you're watching this video on, got you covered. You can watch it there. Mainly because in some of the bills that I've gone through, mainly SB 16, that is where they defined this term assault firearm. And there are things that weren't in the typical liberal assault weapon genre that they're looking to ball up together. And this expands on that definition that was created under SB 16. So again, watch those videos. That leads you up to what's going on here. So I'll read this summary real quick because there's a lot into it. So try to follow along. So this expands on the definition of assault firearm and would prohibit any person from importing, selling, transferring, manufacturing, purchasing, possessing, or transporting any assault firearm. The violation would be a Class 6 felony, and it also prohibits dealers from selling, renting, trading, or transferring from his inventory any assault firearm to any person, but making it impossible to touch, smell, feel, look at, selfie with, hold, own, transfer, buy, sell, pass down any assault firearm. Now that wouldn't be enough. You're going after shotguns too. The bill also prohibits a person from carrying a shotgun with a magazine that would hold more than 7 rounds of the longest ammunition for which it's chambered in a public place. Current existing law is certain limitations on localities, but this would be full-blown in the Commonwealth. Can't have that. The bill would also make it a Class 6 felony to import, sell, transfer, manufacture, purchase, possess, or transport a large capacity firearm magazine. You know, these standard capacity things, that would be a Class 6 felony, but it doesn't stop there. Along with magazines, we're looking to ban other stuff to include silencers and trigger activators as defined in the bill. Any person who legally owns an assault firearm, a large capacity firearm magazine,
Hello everyone, bonjour à tous. Merci d'être des nôtres. Comme beaucoup de gens à travers le pays, je continue de découvrir les histoires de ceux et celles qui ont perdu la vie dans l'écrasement de l'avion.
In yesterday's plane crash in Iran. I've been thinking of the families, of the victims and their families, and of the communities who are mourning of those losses. What happened yesterday?
Back to Virginia.
Silencers and trigger activators as defined in the bill. Any person who legally owns an assault firearm, a large capacity firearm magazine, a silencer, or a trigger activator on July 1st of 2020 may retain possession until January 1st of 2021. So they're going to let you keep your privately owned property for 6 months. We love you that much. Our humble servants that the oligarchy, us tyrants, will let you keep those for 6 months. During that time, such person shall, 1, render the assault firearm, the large capacity fire magazine, the silencer, or the trigger activator inoperable. So you got to break your own stuff. 2, you have to remove the assault firearm, the large capacity magazine, or the silencer, or the trigger activator from the Commonwealth altogether. Get it out. Can't have it. Banned. Can't have it. No grandfather clause. Finito. 3, you also have to transfer the assault firearm, large capacity, firearm magazine, silencer, or trigger activator to a person outside the Commonwealth who is not prohibited from possessing it, meaning we can't have it here. Get rid of it. And the other option is 4, to surrender the assault firearm, large capacity magazine, the silencer, or the trigger activator to the freaking jackbooted thugs who we're looking to hire to come take your stuff and put you in prison for. The state police or any other local law enforcement agency who is in the minority who said that they would enforce this stuff. Remember, a lot of the sheriffs and the deputies and the chiefs and the cops in the state have said we are not enforcing these unconstitutional laws. I hope they stick with it, because today is the day that they take their oath. New incoming tyrants, that is. Now, there's even more. There's another wrinkle to this related to the assault firearms. If you own one after July 1st, 2020, and they're going to let you keep it until January 1st of 2021, there's more stuff that they want you to do. Servant, peon, scumbags. That's what they think we are. If you want to keep them after January 1st, you can. If you get a permit from the state police to possess the assault firearm in accordance with procedures established in the bill. A person issued such permit may possess an assault firearm only under the following conditions. A, while in his home or on his property, or while on the property of another who has provided prior permission, provided that that person has the landlord's written permission on his or her person while on the property. So you need your little hall pass to go on somebody else's property. If you don't have your hall pass, then straight to the principal's office with you. B, while at a shooting range, a shooting gallery, or other area designated for the purpose of target shooting, or the target range of a public or private club or organization whose members have organized for the purpose of practicing shooting targets or competing in target shooting matches. So, but that doesn't say the bill we covered yesterday about them banning any firing range, any indoor shooting range. Remember that stuff? Watch that video too, linked right there. A lot, and that bill seems to be specifically going after the NRA and their ranges, but if it's not in a building owned or leased by the government, you can't have an indoor shooting range if you have more than 50 employees, 50 people working in the building, etc. Watch that video, it explains it. But there's more. C, while engaged in lawful hunting, or D, while surrendering the assault firearm to the state or local law enforcement. You can possess it while you're surrendering your stuff. A line as any person issued such permit may also transport the assault firearm between any of those locations, provided that such assault firearm is unloaded and secured within a closed container while it's being transported. Now, also, the government says that failure to display the permit and a photo identification upon demand by the jackbooted thugs shall be punishable by a $25 civil penalty, which shall be paid to the state treasury. Now, that's not it. There's more. I told you. It just seems like they fall off the rocker and hit their head really hard. There's more. The bill also requires the Department of State Police to enter the name and the description of a person issued a permit in the Virginia Criminal Information Network, which is the VCIN, so that the permit's existence and current status will be made known for law enforcement personnel accessing the VCIN for investigative purposes. That is a registry. So, summary, we're going to ban assault weapons. Can't think about them, touch them, possess them, transfer them, sell them, Instagram them. Can't have them at all. So you can't buy them, sell them, own them, trade them. No, none of that. Dealers can't do any of that. You can't have any silencers, magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, shotguns that hold more than 7 rounds, trigger cranks and bump stocks. We're going to give you a 6-month period where you got to get rid of it. You got to break it. You got to get it out of the state. We got to come turn it into the jackbooted thugs. If you want to keep them after that time, you need the permission slip from the government, the permit. You have to have that permit on you, no matter where you are, with an ID. Otherwise, you're going to get a fine. If you don't have your permission slip, if you're hunting on someone's property, you're going to get a fine. And oh yeah, the registry, so that we can confiscate them because we're trying to get the red flag law in too, and we're going to abuse it just like Florida. About sums up this bill. It is HB 961. Link is in the description. Pass this along. I count on you to help me get it out. So please smash that thumbs up button. That way.
I'll be back. I'll catch y'all guys later. Appreciate you.